this episode is all subject around why is Britain so lonely, and we'd like our guests to introduce themselves, and if you can directly answer that question as well amongst your introduction, that would be a great start to our conversation. So Justin, do you want to kick off?
So thank you for inviting me on today. Delighted to be part of the conversation. So I'm Justin Leigh. I am a local business owner in the St Neots and Cambridgeshire area. I work internationally with companies and right the way across the UK, but more recently in the last, it'll be 5 years in March, I founded a local walking group and talking group for men, which is a men's mental health and fitness group called Walk and Talk for Men. The question was about loneliness. Why is loneliness such a problem? I think that, it's like anything. There's no silver bullet. There's no one explanation. I think it's such a combination of things. Certainly the hangover from COVID plays a part because a lot of people became isolated during that period, and I think struggled to reconnect and re-engage in broader society and community. I think that social media definitely plays a part. I saw a chart on LinkedIn yesterday, actually. You get those dynamic graphs where it shows the rise of companies and stuff and who wasn't around and where they came to. And it showed that back in the 80s, time on social media was 0, right? And it started with percentage time spent with family was number one, then friends, then it went to work colleagues, and there were others. And it had this 0% for social media. And then it's a dynamic graph that went year after year after year after year. And it showed that last year, in fact, the last 5 years, people have spent more time on social media than either friends, family, co-workers, or any. It just trumps the chart. It has played a huge part, I'm sure. So you've got the hangover from COVID. I think you've got social media. I think you've also got the fact that it's when people are struggling with their mental health, and I think there's more of that happening now than there's been for ever. When people are struggling with their mental health, and I speak from personal experience, you withdraw because you think that's the right thing to do, and you don't realise that actually the antidote to poor mental health is to connect. So I think you've got so many different dynamics at play, and I'm sure we'll unpack a lot of that as we go through the conversation.
That's welcome. Okay, yeah, brilliant. Do you want to introduce yourself and your response to that question?
Yeah, so I'm Ruth. I work for CPSL Mind as a Good Life Facilitator. So day to day, that means supporting very vulnerable individuals in their homes, sort of with quite practical, goal-based things. So it might be getting the bus for the very first time. It might be actually leaving the house for the first time in years. It might be helping them with hospital appointments and things like that, but also emotional support and just listening to people. I also help to run a Good Mood Cafe here in St Neots, where people can just drop in, no referrals needed, and just sit, have a coffee and chat. So that's what my role entails, and I've been at CPSL Mind for coming on to 2 years now. On the side, I also play football, so the sort of impact of sport on wellbeing has always been something that I've been really interested in. And in terms of answering the question without repeating anything that Justin said, he seems to have hit the nail on the head completely with everything, and I totally agree that, with the rise in social media and also the kind of isolation element of COVID, I think that's been really, really challenging, especially for our young people. But I also think it's been challenging for our older generations too, and I feel like they were almost sort of, neglected the most during COVID, and, people weren't able to spend time, like last moments with elderly relatives and attend funerals and things like that. Obviously care homes were a big issue as well. So I think there are, everybody was affected, and there are certain people that were affected a lot more. And I think because of social media, people feel like they are more connected. But when it comes to the sort of face-to-face connection with people and grabbing a pint with your mates or grabbing a coffee or whatever, I think that's becoming less and less. And people are working from home when, office banter and things like that is part of, going to work day in, day out. So I think, I think also with how scary the outside world is at the moment, I think people are worried about, going out, because it is a scary place to be. So I think there's lots of reasons as to why Britain is particularly lonely, but it is quite worrying, and I do worry about people's mental health because, as Justin sort of alluded to, one of the most valuable things you can do if you're feeling low is to connect with people. So, yeah.
a wicked problem, they call it. A wicked problem. Lots of different factors.
One of the 5 ways to well-being as well.
Do you have a perspective on this question?
Yeah, so I think
You wrote it.
We have touched. Yeah, so I'm Olivia. For those that don't know, from CPSL Mind. So I think the way we communicate has massively changed. I mean, who remembers a landline? I mean, do you remember a landline? Yeah. But I think
I'm old enough to remember a landline.
You used to have to shout at whoever's on the internet. I remember that.
Guilty as charged.
Who's on the internet?
I've got a couple of funny stories about landlines, but if we've got time.
Okay.
I think it's so I think the way that we're communicating has definitely changed. I think it's it's so much easier to hide behind a WhatsApp message. You know, we're not actually communicating. We're not picking up the phone and asking like, "How are you?" to our friends, and you know, "Oh, how are you?" and they text back, "Yeah, okay, thanks," or "Yeah, not bad." Not bad. If you ask again, that not bad could actually be, I'm feeling really terrible right now. Yeah. So I think the way we're communicating has definitely changed and been a factor. We're not, I feel, me myself, in touch with so many people, but yet actually very few probably know how I'm feeling. Because it's light touch connection. It's very far removed. Yeah, it's very transactional. Like Ruth was saying around social media, we're having a lot of interactions. But what's the quality of those interactions? And that's where the services that Ruth and Justin work in. It's about that quality of interacting with people and just giving people the time to connect.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think I find it fascinating because if you think, talking about like data, and if you look historically, you've only ever really, if you think historically, you don't ever really been normal to have 5 or 6 friends. Before today and before the big, like, all the contacts we have, the followers, the friends, the connections, whichever platform language you use, they're barely even acquaintances, but they're network effects. And I think I'm the wild optimist as always in this sort of thing. I do think there's going to be I think it comes back round.
Switch.
Yeah, there's a project I've been following recently. It's an international project called the Offline Club, and they create spaces for people to be offline together. And I really like that kind of concept. We're trialing it with an event here in the Citizen Hub actually, where we're going to charge people to come in, but they can waive the charge if they leave their phone in the basket on the way in, and just as a social experiment to see because. Yeah, because I do think these phones, and I actually had a bit of a conversation with someone in government about this recently. They were talking about young people with they're being attached to their phone. I said, well, let me just correct you. I think actually it's the other way around. I think the phone is attached to them. That is a very sophisticated piece of technology that by design is there to create dopamine hits and that does that.
Steal their attention.
And there's no real education around that. So I think, I definitely agree that social media has played a part. But I think culturally, that's our opportunity. And I think that's where I was one of your first walkers. I remember you texted me 5 years ago saying, Alex, I'm doing a thing.
Doing a thing.
Yeah. And I said, okay,
It turned out to be a pretty big thing.
It did turn out to be a very big thing. But I think it was one of them where we've known each other for a long time. So it was a case of, okay, Justin's doing a thing. I'm just going to turn up and support him because it's nice and but actually I'm hooked. I think it's fantastic, and having seen the impact of the walkers and growing and growing and growing, and that level of peer-to-peer support is so key. I think that's the environment that you've created within the Walk and Talk for Men. I think it's created a really safe space for people to help themselves in that.
And I think that's the key. Is for people to help themselves or help each other. I think that's so important. It was interesting because do you want me to tell a little bit about?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, go. Yeah.
I founded the group. I set it up. First walk was in March 2021, so it will be 5. We will be 5 as a group in March 2026, and it was born off the back of in 2017-18. I was in a really stressful corporate job, like super stressful, to the point where I was, I dreaded Monday mornings on a Sunday night. It was just awful. It was like draining the life out of me. And anyone who knows me, I'm a pretty positive guy. And at that point, I'd had enough. And a combination of circumstances. Anyway, in the end, I had a conversation with some family members and then my wife, who said, you're just going to have to go and see a doctor because you're just in a really bad place. So I went to see the GP, and the GP then said, yeah, you need to take some time off work. So she signed me off. And then she said, and you should get some support. I'm like, what support is there? Well, there's this online program we do. I'm like, that, is there any other support? That's pretty much it. So I ended up just basically, it's like self-help. And thankfully, because I'm quite motivated and I get, that actually a lot of this stuff has to be driven by yourself. So I worked through it, and actually it was really helpful. So I did, I think it was three to 6 months, depending on, how intense it was that I was working on it. I then made a life-changing decision. I got out of my corporate job. I set my own business up, which on the surface looks like a more stressful thing than the job. But it depends what stress you want. Right? So I wanted a bit more control back in my life, and I felt that I could give myself that control by making that decision, which I did. So I had some agency. But as I went through that process, and over the next year or two, I thought to myself, if somebody didn't have the level of motivation that I have, they would be absolutely adrift right now. And it kept coming back to me over and over again. And then COVID hit, forward 2 years, COVID hits, the situation gets even worse. We go through a series of lockdowns. People I know and I see on social media, were struggling. And then I saw this group that was started in Essex, which was this group called Walk and Talk for Men. It kept coming up on my social media feed. I must have been researching, it feeds you what you look for. So I reached out to the guy that had originally set this group up in Essex and said, I see what you're doing. How would I set mine up? Could I set a version of this up? And he basically came back to me and said, yes, fill your boots. I was like, have you got any ideas on how I could do it? So he sent me the logo for Walk and Talk with Men. He sent me the logo. I said, any other direction? He said, well, organise a walk, work out where you want to walk and see if people will come. And that was the start of it. So because I've got a bit of a business brain, I thought, well, if I do that, I'm going to be walking on my own. Alex might come.
I'll follow him anywhere.
A very intimate walk.
We can walk anywhere. Yeah. So I'm like, in order to get some traction on this, I'm going to have to do something different. So I was going to start it. I think it was about this time of year. We talked about it before Christmas. I didn't start it until the March because I gave it some thought and I prepared and I thought, right, okay, how do we do this? So I created a Facebook group. I created an event on Facebook. I made sure I knew where the walk was going to be. I created a couple of templates in Canva, and I built out a plan and said, right, I'm going to plan for the walk to be at the end of March, and then I'm going to promote it for 3 months. So I promoted it and I was pushing it through network. Alex was sharing it, a few people locally picked up on it. And then when we did our first walk, we had 8 people. So there was 8 of us, which I was like, that's a result, because I honestly thought I might be walking around with Alex.
No one wants that for an hour. I can exhaust you very quickly.
We would have had a good walk.
Yeah.
But I was also conscious that I had this intuition that there was a need. So the first walk, we got 8 people there. We had some really interesting people at that first walk with us. And then I decided to do it monthly. Within a couple of months of doing it, someone who kept turning up was a guy called Steve Whitney. And Steve Whitney is a huge champion for men's mental health. He's got a really interesting backstory, which I won't go into. At some point you might have Steve Whitney. But Steve then said, can I get involved? I was like, thank God someone else was. Yeah, come on, Steve. Yeah.
Fill your boots, Steve.
That's how it works, isn't it?
Fill your boots, Steve, fill your boots. But by then I'd mapped out 6 months walks. So I knew what day they were going to be like. So we went to, I think it was 3rd Sunday of the month. So like every 3rd Sunday of the month, we will be meeting at Paxton Pits to do this walk. So I mapped out 6 months worth of events. And then because of that frequency and because people were like, okay, this is an initiative that's around to stay, we started getting some traction. So we had 8 walkers, then we had 10, then we had 12, then we had 14, 16. Before you know it, I set up a WhatsApp group. People are joining the WhatsApp group. People have started to follow the page. We're getting reshared into different groups around St Neots. So we've got about 1,200 followers on Facebook. We have about 120 guys in a WhatsApp group. The walk's gone. Then after Steve, a couple of other guys said, "Can we get involved?" So I'm like, "Fill your boots." Here's the logo. But we started to make it a bit more structured. So we said, "Right, let's put in place a few things that make it really easy for us to do this, so we don't have to think about it, like the WhatsApp group, like the Facebook page, and just getting things set up and be really consistent." So we now say every Saturday morning there's a walk. It's at the same time every week at the same
That's what people
location.
need as well. It's just having that time, place. Yeah,
You don't have to think about it. Oh, you're what, third which day of the month?
Yeah.
So we do weekly walks now from the Ambience, which is on the Riverside car park in St Neots, and that's led by one of the group leaders. There are now 6 of us. So it's myself, Steve Whitney, John Eaton, who is another force of nature.
It is.
Mike Hodge, Glenn Bailey, and Bill Mitchell. So any one of us will step in to lead a walk. So there's, they say it takes a village to raise a child. I think it takes a community to create, safe and secure health for everybody. You have to have a community involved in that. So we've got 6 walk leaders, and in 5 years, which will be 5 years in March, where it started, I had aspirations for it. I thought we could get this, we could get this to become quite popular locally. Actually, where we've got to, and I have to say, credit to the walk leaders. I've kind of backed off a little bit to give them the space to lead it. Is absolutely amazing. We have regularly now 20 plus guys showing up to walks whenever we run special events. In January we're running like a charity walk where we'll generate funds for.
Thank you very much.
for the
setting up,
special health resources that they're going to provide locally. We will run like a charity walk. I think we've already up to 40 people involved in that. Whenever we do any campaigns, we'll be supported by hundreds of people locally. It's just.
And everyone's got their own reason. I think I read on your website that someone had experienced a bereavement, and it was a lifeline to them at that time. So it's almost like you've just really supported people in that time of need that maybe they may, if you weren't there, or maybe they come along to one of our Good Mood cafes as well. That's how life-changing it can be.
It really is. And there's so many stories. I won't go into all of them, but so many stories of people who were at a really difficult stage in their life and found the group, and it kind of helped them to re-establish that sense of community connection, feeling good about themselves, or at least feeling as if they're wanted in some way. And I think that's the piece. This conversation is important because where I was when I founded the group, I was in a good place, but I'd been through a really difficult stage. And I see these groups, if I'd gone back, 2017, 18 was my difficult period. I look back on it now, I'm quite grateful I went through it, because probably if I hadn't gone through it, I wouldn't have formed the group, right? So it's left a really positive legacy for me. But if this group had existed in 2016 and I'd been part of it, I probably wouldn't have hit the low I hit. And so that for me is the number one objective of what we do in Walk Talk for Men St Neots, is provide people with support ahead of when they need it.
But also when they need it, in terms of that drop-in element, which is your group, Justin, and obviously the CPSL Mind's Good Mood Cafe has got just over 20 now in different partnerships, forming, helping, on average about 160 people per week at our Good Mood Cafes. And Ruth, you do a fantastic
Tell us
job.
more.
So myself and my colleague Matt run the one at St Neots, and I actually joined the group as a newbie, as a member of staff, because I was covering, and then I became a permanent member of staff there. And it was amazing because I actually felt very welcomed from us, almost like I was a service user attending the group for the first time. And a lot of the members who've been members for a while have sort of taken on that role of being the welcoming sort of, part of the furniture members of this group. So when, a new member comes in, it's not actually me and Matt who introduce them, but other members of the group, which is amazing. And it's just like Justin was saying, like seeing that sort of consistency every single week. These people, some people won't, go out very much at all. And at least on a Tuesday afternoon, they know exactly where they are. They know who they're going to be with. They're in a very safe, non-judgmental space. And I've honestly learned so much about sort of, creating that space, that sense of belonging, that sense of community, and how valuable that can be in people's lives. And some people have really struggled because it's a group. If someone's particularly anxious, that can be a really hard dynamic to come into. And there was one particular lady who literally was in the group about 5 minutes before she sort of had to take some time out and got very overwhelmed. And now she's a member of the group who stays for the whole thing and is speaking to people around her and forming those connections and those friendships. And seeing progress like that is just, it's why we do what we do. It's kind of seeing someone come out of their shell and feel very safe. One of the parts of my job that I love the most is because I work with people one-to-one, so I go and visit them in their houses and support them in that way. But sometimes we're able to support them to attend a Good Mood Cafe. So it's sort of two of our services aligning. And with the hope that then they will go and attend that group on their own. So it's kind of forging that independence for them and supporting them to be independent at their own pace, of course. But yeah, it's amazing because you almost let them fly then, and it's brilliant to see someone who's kind of come through the service and has got that support that they need, and then is able to then make those connections within their local community. It's so fulfilling. And again, sort of similar to Justin, like I kind of wish something like that had been around for me when I was really struggling, years ago, because you do withdraw and you do become very isolated. One of the things at the time when I was struggling was sort of like I didn't have a job, and I really struggled during the day when everyone else was at work or at college or whatever, and I didn't have anything. I always thought actually that's the time when people need connection the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's all well and good when everyone comes back, home from their day of work or whatever. I really wish there'd been just a safe space for me to go and grab a coffee and just chat to people.
Yeah, and also there's just so many elements. I mean, we played dominoes, didn't we? And in one of the Good Mood cafes together, and some people bring their pets, their dogs in and everything. So it's very much, I've sat in some Good Mood cafes, people sharing about how they collect classic cars, or different events they go to, or maybe the latest book that they've read. So it's all about people bringing what they want to talk about. And I think that can really help as well if you are a little bit nervous. Just having something prepared to come, I think that really helps. And the great things about our Good Mood cafes is you can stay for as long as you want. If you just want to do half an hour and then next week you stay for the full 2 hours, that's fine. There's no pressure. And each Good Mood cafe is so different and unique. So and Ruth, I'm sure you'd agree, you can go to multiple different Good Mood cafes. They're on every week and throughout different days of the week. So it's about finding the space that works for you, isn't it?
Yeah. You're describing here essentially the definition of the opposite of isolation. You're talking about here, the opportunity to know that there are ways to connect. And I think when you think about isolation as a word, you think about being stuck in isolation, and knowing that you have that option. That sometimes, and even if you don't attend. I think of a guy that comes to the hub quite a bit, and we're trying to get him to he needs walk and talk for men. He desperately needs it, and we haven't managed to get him for a walk yet, but we're close, and we're already weaving. This is the level of care that comes from a community that's open to this sort of conversation. It's not Justin. Justin's not even aware of the situation, probably. It's not Steve. It's a few of the walkers that have kind of heard about the situation, and we're now creating this pathway to get him to his walk. Because I know if he gets to a walk, then I know he'll be all right.
He'll get hooked.
And then someone will put their arm around him, and I know that it'll be fine.
That comes back to what we were saying earlier. About we all have a role to play, don't we, in the community and
we do.
Working.
That's the only way we're going to resolve isolation. It's not. We all have to get involved in this, and I think that's what's quite wonderful about these two examples, where you've got something that's really well designed in the sense of the Good Mood Cafe. I think it's a great case study for the country in terms of the way that you guys have curated that with the lived experience of yourself and other people involved. I think that's a prime example, but paired with a grassroots kind of community solution like that as well. And then suddenly, there's a load of other.
It was already happening. So we've teamed up with Earth and Mind charity in Milton.
Love
so we're doing a sort of wild wellbeing cafe at Milton Country Park. We've obviously got the Bright Horizons cafe. Yes. So obviously Matt, who works with Ruth in the St Neots Good Mood Cafe, runs that one at Cambridge United Football Club. So a lot of supporters they come to the Abbey on a Saturday. And they're coming to the Abbey on a Wednesday afternoon as well, but for a chat and a cup of tea. And so it's about creating those safe spaces and meeting people where they're at. They might find it easier to go to the Abbey than they might, pop along in St Neots, but hopefully we'll see them there soon.
That's the access piece, isn't it? That's like saying we have a duty, especially the four of us and others that have been involved in this series that we've had here about we are stewards. We're ultimately we are privileged in a position that we can create the infrastructure, the environment for countering the isolation that exists, because let's not hide from it, as you kind of opened up at the start of the conversation, it's a big issue. I think it's the biggest killer in the UK right now. Isolation, right? I don't know what the stats are, but it's a big issue, and I think. But I listen to you too, and I think, wow, this is we just need to spread this.
Yeah.
We need this to spread.
Yeah, that's a good question, because a lot of the work we do in Walk and Talk for Men in attracting people, it's very much driven by either word of mouth, people talking to each other, and or it's through our social reach. So every week when there's a walk, John or one of the walk leaders will take photos.
You love a selfie, don't you?
We love a selfie as a group. We love a selfie, and they go out on our Walk and Talk for Men page, and that page then gets reshared into all the local groups. So that reach kind of happens organically, and then we'll receive messages from people to say, I've been, and it's really interesting because there's a couple of things that happen. I'm sure you've heard the term, I don't like it, but it's true, nagging wives save lives.
Yeah.
And that's true. And a lot of men that come to our walk will say, my wife's been on at me to do this for months, and I've been resisting it. And then I thought, do you know what? I checked you out on Facebook. It looked okay. I saw some people that I might have seen around. So then they come for the first walk. Really important from our point of view that we create as warm a welcome as possible, because it takes a lot of courage to come into a group. I think particularly for men, because men don't like to open up and talk straight away. So there's a little bit of probably skepticism, and they wouldn't admit it, but fear. Yeah. Fear that if I get there and I make a fool of myself, or I don't want to talk, and then I feel under pressure to talk. None of that goes on. So we're really, really clear about that in that first contact. First contact's absolutely vital. And we talk about that in the group. It's really interesting, that first contact being so important. I hadn't been for I'd been to the Paxton walks a couple of times, and then I went to a Saturday walk one morning. I tend to let the Saturday guys lead the walks because I don't want them feeling like I'm like taking over anything. Not that they would feel like that. But I went to this walk.
All they'd let you.
Well, not all that.
I wouldn't mess with them.
They've got it under control. They've got it under control. I went to this Saturday walk, and one of the guys who was there turned to me and he said, "Oh, nice to meet you." He said, "We get together every Saturday. We've been doing this for a while now." And I'm like, he doesn't know.
It's working. It's working. So, what a wonderful signal, though.
He was telling me how it worked. I couldn't help but smile. And then one of the other walk leaders went, "Oh, let's introduce you guys." But it was just brilliant, because that shows how naturally
they believe in it as well, though.
They want to welcome people, and they are part of the ambassadors and advocates for the group. I think you need that, and you can curate it.
So, from both your perspectives, thinking about people who are watching this that will think, "Oh, you know what? I'd love to be a catalyst in my community to create something like a Good Mood Cafe or a Walk and Talk for Men." What would you say are the core ingredients that make that the welcoming and inclusive space that it is? What do you think are those core ingredients you need from a collective of individuals to ensure that those scale in the way that they have? Would you have any thoughts on that, Ruth?
Yeah, I think everyone needs to be sort of singing from the same hymn book, I guess. I think, as we both kind of alluded to, when people are really when they buy into something, they actually want to sort of shout about it and tell people about it. And I know that, some people will bring along their friends to like Good Mood Cafes, and I'm sure people bring along their mates to like the Walk and Talk. So I think having like a sort of vision, and sort of, so it's not sort of like a, it's got to be goal, orientated, or who are we focusing on? What group of people do we want to reach? Because I'm thinking about it all the time. As I said before, I'm kind of come from a football background. I've always wanted to, do something where people have a space to play football and to chat and things like that. So it's got to be something that sort of reaches your particular group of people. I think talking about men is a really, vital one because of the sort of, suicide statistics around men. But also, again, from a football perspective, it's a very sort of macho changing room environment that I've kind of grown up with, even though playing women's football is slightly different, but it, it does feed off that quite a lot. I just think people with a shared vision, that shared connectedness, and sort of buying into something, I think that whole peer-led thing is so powerful, because people who have been through it themselves then want to pass that on to other people. I think a lot of people who are in the sorts of positions that we're in have got lived experience, and I think that's a really powerful thing. the reason why I wanted to work for CPSL Mind and I didn't want to work for the NHS was because I wanted to work alongside the NHS, because I saw sort of like the gaps within the services that they can offer, and I wanted to work sort of alongside them in parallel to offer people more than I knew that the NHS could offer. And, you know, I'm very lucky that I'm able to do that now. Again, wish I'd had that when I was struggling, you know. So, yeah, I think having a group of people that really trust and value what you're offering, who can then almost, like Justin was saying, you can then take a step back and let them lead, and it feeds off each other. So, yeah.
So it's a compelling vision, peer led,
Yeah.
And
Purpose.
purpose. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
A reason to do it.
So what can you build on that, Justin? What lessons have you had that can
I
help others?
totally agree with Ruth. I think the other thing, there's a couple of things that we managed to integrate within Walk and Talk for Men by accident, but they're absolutely critical. The first one, I think, when you're leading initiatives like that, it's really important to note that there isn't a big ego that's behind it. And we're really fortunate, you know, the 6 Walk leaders I mentioned earlier, you know, myself, Steve, John, Bill, Glenn, and Mike. There isn't one of them that wants the limelight, that is trying to do it for any other reason than to help and support others. That for me, that's so important.
So intention,
because otherwise you tune people out. You know, people are intuitive, instinctively. They'll know: is this about you inflating your ego, or is this about you doing something that genuinely you feel is beneficial for the community? So we're fortunate that happened. And we've got 6 people. And I think because genuinely that was my intention, Steve's was the same, then we attracted like-minded people. I didn't set out with that thought. I probably have done it automatically, but I would say that's important as a key.
Yeah, okay.
I think then the next thing is being consistent and being there for the duration, the long term. And I get probably 3 or 4 times a year, I'll get a message from somebody on some form of social media platform who says, I've seen a post with you in it about Walk and Talk for Men. Can I have a conversation with you about setting up a group in my area? And I said, yeah, always say yes, yeah, absolutely. And I've built a toolkit. I've got,
Of course you have.
I've got, if someone says to me, how'd you do it? I say, here's an onboarding video. It's on YouTube.
Here's the logo.
Here's
So your boots, mate.
here's the logo, but here's a toolkit.
Here's a field boot.
Here's a series of instructions of how to set it up, because I documented it. I documented it because I got asked a few times. And I thought, I've got to stop having the same conversations. I need to just make this a system. So interestingly, one of the first things I say to people is, if you want to do this, the only way it'll be a success is if you're committed to do this over time. Because if you say, I'm going to do 2 or 3 of these walks and see how it goes, you get 5 or 6 people turn up. There'll be 5 or 6 different random people, and it'll die on the vine. You have to say, I'm committed to this I'm going to do it for at least a year. At the end of that year, if it's got traction, I'm going to go for year 2. And you have to just think long term, because people don't want short term fixes. They actually want something that's going to be there for the long term. So I think that's the final ingredient. It's having something that you can say to people, we're here to support you over the long term. And then they can trust they can be part of something that's sustainable. And then the final bit, there is one other thing that comes to my mind. And that is I heard this principle about how to promote things without feeling like you're being showy and show off. And this is equally important. When I talk about Walk and Talk for Men, I don't talk about me, I talk about the group.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a difference between, again, it links back to ego, but promoting yourself doing it versus promoting the cause and what it stands for. And that is how I got out of my own way and was able to say, you know, I can shout from the rooftops about this because it's not about me. It's about the group. It's about the community, the mission. It's what we're trying to achieve and how we help and support others. And I think if you get a combination of what Ruth has said and what those key principles, I think if you can line all that up, it's probably the recipe to drive a really successful community initiative.
Look at that. There you go. Some action. You wanted action. We got the right people on the side for action. This is brilliant.
Yeah.
So this is called Side by Side. So in the context of what you do and the people that you serve and that are supportive within your communities, if you were to wave a magic wand and think about the ideal thing that would run parallel to you and your communities, what might that be? What might be side by side with Walk and Talk for Men or the Good Mood Cafes?
I think for me, as I kind of said earlier, I kind of have always wanted to kind of create a space that's, matching my two passions, selfishly. But yeah, something where some people, I think the walk and talk is a great example of where people don't necessarily just want to go and sit and chat. They almost want an excuse to go and do something else, and the sitting and chatting comes afterwards or separately. So I think, yeah, the walk and talk is a great example, but also are there other forms of activity we can do where we can allow people the space and the freedom to meet other people, to connect, to do something they love, but then also have an element of mental health support for people. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to kind of use my two passions. To go into a bit of detail as to why that's so important to me. When I was very, very unwell, I was admitted into an inpatient unit sort of 7 years ago. And I remember I got some day release, so I basically was able to go wherever I wanted, and then I had to come back to the hospital. And I remember saying, I want to go and play football. I didn't go home. I didn't see my family, didn't see my friends. I said, Mum, can you drive me to football, and I'll play football that day. Yeah. So that's how important football was to me at that time. That's the one thing that I wanted to do. And it's the one thing that gave me quite a lot of light during, obviously, the darkest period of my life. And I know that it can do that for other people. So I want to instill that kind of, that team element, that purpose, that where is my place in the world? Oh, it's actually playing in the number 9, whatever that might be. But I also want to make it accessible to everyone. It's been very difficult being sort of a girl growing up playing football and things like that, and that kind of, discrimination that you experience. Oh, you're a girl, you just got tackled by a girl, you can't play football, playing in a boys' team and things like that. So yeah, my ultimate goal would be to have different activities for people within the community where there is always someone there that you can talk to. But how do we reach people? Well, let's choose activities that people already go to, and then let's make them, emotionally sort of aware places as well.
Nice, love that. Thank you.
And full of compassion as well,
yeah.
Which is clearly what Justin and Ruth both have and deliver.
Thank you for sharing that as well.
Thank you, Ruth. And courage. I was going to touch on CPSL Mind's values because I think it really, having courage is huge, and also the inclusivity as well, and obviously compassion as well. So I think that really aligns.
So we zigzag then. We'll go zigzag to you then. So your reflections on isolation. What's your side-by-side reflection on this isolation conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo everything that Ruth and Justin have said. I think we need to keep working together. We need to keep communicating. We need to be compassionate. We need to make sure that we support one another, check in on one another as well. And obviously we can't do, what we do at CPSL Mind, without support from the community. We're doing so many exciting new projects in partnerships, but we can't do that without the support of people. So just to really, in order for us to do that, 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health challenge in any given year. So we really, need to work together, and we rely on support.
Fair. What about you, Justin? What's your side? What are the Mikes and the Johns of this world, the Walkers? What do you think that is the perfect complementary side-by-side offering to them that doesn't exist in your world right now that you wish that it would?
Yeah, I think so. I've got a couple of things from today's conversation. I'm certainly going to think about how, as Walk and Talk for Men, we can amplify the work of the Good Move cafes and the Good Life projects, and kind of connect on that stuff. So when you're posting, we'll start to follow your initiatives and repost yours, and hopefully we can get the same collaboration just to increase reach.
Absolutely.
From what I've seen with our Walk and Talk for Men, even though there's like a weekly walk, the WhatsApp groups are a really powerful communication vehicle, and people meet up, people support each other. If someone's got an issue or a problem, they will drop it into the group. There's always someone that says, "I'm around. Do you want a coffee? Would you like to meet up?" Which is really great. It's just a huge great community, and you've seen that firsthand yourself as well, Alex.
Very busy, man. There's mute notifications on
I might be guilty of that, and I just go in and check it.
Yeah, me too.
But that as a way to connect, communicate, provide support, I think is really powerful. I guess I'd love to see, we do it once a week and there's the offline information. I wonder if, and there's something that you're working on next year, if there was a dedicated resource in the area where people knew, whether that's mental health support or someone who they could just go and have a chat with, or somewhere that's like a safe space. I think the Citizen Hub has created that. I'm proud of the fact that you've done that, and the team have done that. It's awesome. I think perhaps one of the things that we need to do as Walk and Talk for Men is just talk about that more. Yeah. Because I think there are the resources there, like the Good Moon Cafe, like the Citizen Hub, like Walk and Talk for Men. I think we just need to. It's like anything, there's that. I learned years ago. There's that rule of 7. The average person needs to hear the same thing 7 times before it lands. They go, "Oh, you mean I could go to Citizen Hub, right?" Because people see it and they're just kind of word blind to stuff. So I think actually the answer is, I think the infrastructure's there.
Yeah,
it's about the messaging, it's about the reinforcement, it's about the communication, it's the welcome and all that. So I think we have the constituent parts. We just need to communicate it as effectively as possible and keep that rhythm of communication going.
Okay. So something that came through, this is perfect. This is a perfect way to finish the podcast series, because in the first episode, what came through the conversation with Alan in particular was about the maze with no map. That I had kind of articulated that there is a maze that we're all in, and let's call it the isolation lens of that maze, and there's just no map for it. And so my wish would be that we do need this map. We need to find a way for people who are isolated. It's like being in, I visualize it as standing in the middle of like one of those big
huge
mazes, but lights are off as well. So it's like this situation, and more we share, and this is why this has been a fabulous exercise of this series we've done. I think it's been a perfect example of where we can do more to share each other's successes and do more to support each other.
Yeah, like, if you can't help, then I know someone that can.
And that's how things work. That's how community works.
Rather than it kind of like, it's not
just us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think the policy environment doesn't help that, and funding, and I think that's, I think it's a lot easier on the community level, I think, generally to do that. I think let's be real. In the third sector or the beyond profit sector, it needs more credit than saying third. Unfortunately, the funding landscape makes it quite difficult for collaboration at the times where required, and let's just be real with that. That's just how that is. So I do think it needs to be citizen-led. I do think it needs to be community-led in terms of the collaboration piece, because the citizens never leave. We never leave. The Citizen Hub is the success it is. I'm proud to say it's a success because it's citizen-led. Yeah. We've got 800 members. You can't take this thing away from us. It's rooted. And the same with your Walk and Talk. If you turn around to the men tomorrow and said, "By the way, we're shutting down Walk and Talk for Men," they'd tell you to do one. I imagine it's exactly the same with your Good Mood. And that is about, and that's because that key thing you said about there, peer-to-peer. Yeah. When the communities grab something, you cannot take it away from them. Same as football. Football say AFC Wimbledon. We talk about AFC Wimbledon offline. We're talking about that. There's no way the community were going to let that become a franchise. There was no way Zav was going to stand down. So I think that's our opportunity, is to give you permission, people that watch this back, to say, you want to start Walk and Talk for Men? Well, you've got the toolkit now. We've got a shared toolkit that's been created through this.
And it's having the courage. It's having the courage that both Justin and Ruth have, and it's trying to instill that in others. To if you see a problem, if you see a gap, if you see an opportunity, get involved and make it happen.
Don't
as
need
well.
Permission for this stuff.
Exactly.
Nobody needs permission. If you have an idea, if you want to make a difference, just start something. I think that's the big thing, isn't it? Just making a start like that for a date. Whether you believe it's going to be a success or not, just start. Once you start, then you learn. Every single time you turn up, you're like, okay, that didn't work. How do I make it better? How do we get the reach out? And you can establish these things as you go along and reach out. If anybody wants to reach out to me personally, feel free. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on every Tuesday.
He's everywhere.
YouTube,
He's all over.
LinkedIn.
He's got 18 books now.
And it's just,
You've got a book as well.
I actually do have a
book. Plug the books and then plug the books. Come on.
Published author.
After my very difficult period, I published a book called Within the White Lines, and it's about basically how football saved my life, really. I've done a lot, obviously, off the back of it, and I will kind of echo exactly what you said. Like I live by, be the change you wish to see in the world. Yeah. That's what I live by day to day.
Damn right. Yes, come on. This is what it's about. This one. This is why when she rang. You know what? I've had hairs on my arms for most of this. Up on my arms for most of this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for that CPSL Mind, and honestly, you know, as someone who's fundraised for you guys for many years, you know, what you do in the community is amazing. It's really important. This series has been really important.
What you do in the community?
Well, this is why we're side by side.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll finish.